Okay, so let's get started. Practical product development module number 3. Today we are talking about design, just design in general. What is design? How to think about it? What are some good practices, bad practices? What is good design? What is bad design? We're gonna start off with talking about that, and then we'll slowly switch gears and move into sketching, which is like the first step for your real assignment, for your call it capstone, call it whatever, like the assignment that goes on for the entire length of this course. So this is going to be a very interesting one. I like this lecture. This stuff took me a lot of time to learn, a lot of struggle. I was not a good design student to start with, but by the time I ended, I think I was doing good. I don't want to say like I did that, but I was doing fair. Um, so quick recap from the last week. We learned how to do market research, how to organize your research and gather insights from it, what you should aim to learn from reverse engineering. We looked at different tools, like the 2x2s and like the affinity mapping, how to organize and segment your customers, all of that. So that was what we did last week. And this time we're going to learn about what is good design. So that's the first topic, the Dieter Rams saga. Where should the process start, design or engineering? Double diamond of design sketching. It's a very popular design tool. Not design tool. It's like it's a way of thinking, design thinking. Yeah. Role of sketching in the product development process, thinking in 3D, and then the bonus is sketching, renders and AI and design roles. This is going to be very interesting. I'm going to talk about what are different design roles, what are they called, and what does that job mean. So it's a very nice bonus. All right, jumping right into it. What is good design? The Dieter Rams saga. Dieter Rams is a legendary industrial designer. He started his career at Braun, which is a very popular, I think, German company, consumer electronics. Dieter Ram's style influences a lot of the products that you see around you right now. His style has influenced Apple a lot. Like you can see so many similarities between what Rams designed and what Apple designs. Johnny Ive was really inspired by Dieter Rams. There are so many other companies that are just that treat what Rams said and Rams laid out as the ground principles. That being said, I mean, design is very subjective. What's good to you might not be good to someone else. But there's still some schools of thought that we should think about, that lay the groundwork for a lot of design. So that's a bit about Dieter Rams, and here are the 10 design rules that Dieter Rams laid out. And I'm gonna go one by one. I'll just read it out, and then we'll apply these rules to some examples. So first, good design is innovative. Um, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Good design is innovative. It's not just something that's very obvious. It's something. Although we'll touch more about touch more on the obvious part. But good design is innovative. Good design makes a product useful. Good design is aesthetic. Good design makes a product understandable. This is very important. Good design is unobtrusive. Good design is honest. And this is the one that I stick to the most. This is my favorite one. Good design is honest. Good design is long lasting. Good design is thorough down to the last detail. Good design is environmentally friendly. And good design is as little as possible. And these principles you can apply to anything. Anything. This you can apply to this slide. Let's think if this slide is designed well or not. I don't think it's well designed, because I don't know which order to go. Should I go 1, 2, 3? Like, should I read horizontally, or should I go? Because like the first time I read this, I was like, first is good design is innovative. Second, good design makes a product understandable. I read 1, 2, 4. So because that's how I generally read, go from top down rather than go like that. So I don't know, should I go 1, 2, 4 and then 1, 2, 3? Like, how should I go? It's not intuitive, right? It's not just I look at it and know, okay, this is how I should read it. Secondly, is there an order of importance to the rules? Is 1 more important than 9? And if not, then why is there a numbering? If there's no order of importance, then could it be a bullet list? Could there be just a marker that says, okay, these are the 9? Because or could we just say at the beginning the 9 rules of good design and then treat all of them equally, rather than giving them order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Then there's a spectacle glasses at the end, which is classic Dieter Rams, like what he wears. But how many people have seen him? How many people know that resembles him? What purpose is that solving? There's Dieter Rams written twice there, so once in the heading and once under his glasses. So why are we saying Dieter Rams twice in the slide? You need to think about all of those things. You need to be critical. It should so the points that are marked are like, is it honest in terms of, is one, like the design rule 1, more important than design rule 9, or is it the 9 that's the most, or the 10th that's the most strongest? So in that way, it's not that honest, right? It's not that intuitive, like it's not that understandable, because I don't know which order to go for. And then thorough down to the last details, like why do we have things written twice? Why is it repetitive? So this is a critical style of thinking that you can apply to anything. I just applied to this slide. You can apply it to a spoon, anything. And most of the times, you know what, good design comes out as something that you don't think about a lot. You just use that product. Bad designs are the ones that shine out, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. Bad design is much easier to observe, to point out, than good design. Good design just, you know, goes invisible, hides in plain sight. And that's why good design is unobtrusive. You know it's there, but you don't think about it, right? So let's talk about some examples. So these are two remote controls. One is like the classic DVD player, CD player, if you guys remember those things. That remote, and the other one is the Google Home, I guess Home, yeah. Or Google TV. Yeah, Google TV, that remote. So there's a big difference between the two. The one on the right has so many buttons. As a result of that, it's very tight. It's very, like, the text is very small. And then there are different, like all these remotes are different. Some have the fast forward, some laid out somewhere else, some have the wheel towards the bottom, so you don't really hold it and know, okay, what to do. The text is very small. It's like very small. For if I give this to my grandmother, maybe she'll not be able to figure out which button is where, and she'll not be able to do what she wants to do. And it's confusing. Like I need to look at the thing and say like, okay, where is my stop button? Like, let me hunt for it. Where is the clear button? Let me hunt for it. So there's a lot of hunting. It's not, you know, straightforward to use. It's not simple. It's not understandable. It's not maybe even defined to the last detail, because like what dictates what button goes where, right? Is there any study that dictates that? On the other hand, the button, the remote for the Google TV, very few buttons. And if you think about it, the number of things you can do on the TV has increased drastically between those two times, right? It's not that the options have reduced. The options have in fact increased. But what they've done is they've moved the options to the screen. The screen, which is right in front of you, so you're not looking down, straining your neck. The screen, which is right in front of you, so you can stand close to it, see the bigger text. The screen, which is now much bigger, and you can change the size of the text. The screen on which you can change the language. So language is not a barrier here. The language is like, if it's English, return, and I don't read English, that remote is useless for me. But if I can change the language on the TV, then that it's like way more inclusive as a product for anyone. Also, just because the buttons are so less, my hand develops muscle memory much faster. It's much more intuitive to use. It's much more honest. It just does what it says. Most of the options you see on the screen, it's more defined as such. Because like the scroll wheel is the thing that you use the most, and it's on the top. So that's where you hold it, so that the position of that is defined. So we see a lot of principles from here in use in just those two, in just that comparison. It's innovative. It moves. It's a deviation from the classic where every option is on the remote and moves all of those options to the TV. It makes it much more useful. We can see it's much more aesthetic. The form is more softer, rather than, you know, a sharp boxy form. and it is more understandable. It is honest. So there are many things that make that remote a better one than the previous generation. Similar example, we can see similar principles in Apple products as well. So the AirPods, that LED at the front, and similar thing on the MacBook Pros as well. You see that only when that's in use. When it's not in use, when it's not charging, it hides. It's not there because when it's not charging, there's no use of it, right? It doesn't have to be there. You have to question, why is this thing there? A way of doing design that I developed over time is, instead of adding more details, adding more features, let me cut down everything that's not crucial and not valuable. Cut down every detail that's not valuable at that point. And in this case, the LED, while the AirPods are in use, it's just not valuable at that time. But we need some form of indication while it's charging, so it needs to be there while it's charging, and that's why it's so small, so tiny, but still in an area where it is visible, right? um the AirPods do not have like a big branding, like a big logo on there somewhere, because AirPods have been like out there, and it's like Apple's style of being subtle and saying that, okay, this is our product, we don't need to shout that this is us, we don't need big branding, we can keep it small. So we can see all those principles in the iPod. We can see that you have simple buttons, simple scroll wheel, everything else is on the screen. So you don't have like multiple buttons like the Walkman. Operating a Walkman is like, oh, this button's here, this button's here, this button's here, this button does what? Oh, I accidentally pressed this button. But it eliminates all of those things. It's super small. It's like their advertisement for the iPod was 1,000 songs in your pocket, something like that. And which is so impactful. They're selling the emotion here. They're selling that, okay, it's not just a device. It's like 1,000 songs you carry in your pocket, which earlier was not even possible. So that so those are two examples about good design and bad design. Now, where should the process start? Should the process start with design, or should the process start with engineering? And this is a question that I get a lot. For engineers, it always starts with engineering. For designers, it remains in design for a very long time before it hits engineering. There's a middle ground between the two, and I think the process should always start with being imaginative, and then think of logical ways to turn that into a reality. Start with the desired result, and then think of logical ways to turn into a reality. Because if you start with just what I can do, what I know, and you're not thinking wild, you're not thinking all the possible ways, you're not thinking crazy ideas, then you're leaving a lot on the table. You're just limited to your current knowledge, you're limited to your current skill set. And that was me. That's why my project ideas were so much criticized, because the professors knew that I know SolidWorks. They knew that I can do woodwork, sheet metal, and there's all of my ideas reflected that. And the only point they made was like, you're not pushing yourself, you're leaving a lot on the table just because you don't know it right now. And that's why you are suggesting ideas from your own vocabulary, which is limited right now. And that is true. I was not being imaginative, and that's what I want every person who does design or make something to do. Don't restrict yourself just to what you know. Learn whatever is needed throughout the process, but start with the desired result. Think of what's ideal. In the ideal world where you can do everything, what would you do? If you had every resource, what would you do? And then you put those filters, you put categorize things, that desirability, feasibility, viability, all of that. But it starts with being imaginative. Start with the desired experience, and then think of logical ways to turn it into a reality. A very good example is, again, the iPod. They started with design. They started with, okay, this is the thing. Memory chips of that size do not exist. Screens are not cut in that size right now. All the things favor a Walkman. There are off-the-shelf parts available for a Walkman, but that's not where we're going to start. We're not going to start with, okay, let's design a better Walkman. We're going to start with, what's the ideal thing? If it fits in a shirt pocket, that's ideal. That's what I want. Walkmans are too big. It has to be small. I don't care if there's a screen of that size or not. This is the form factor. This is where they started. This is a cardboard model, and they said, okay, the iPod has to be this size. There has to be a main control input right in the middle where someone will place their thumb. There's a screen. This is what we hit. No matter what, if the existing infrastructure exists or not, we're going to make this thing. And imagine if they started with something else. If they started with thinking, okay, what are the things in the market right now? For memory, there are CD players. Okay, now CD has a definite dimension, so we need to follow that dimension. Now the CD cover needs to close because it needs to be protected. So they would end up doing what everyone else is doing. You have to take a dig and say, okay, whatever everyone else is doing. Let's think about what's ideal. If I could ask for like the Aladdin's magic lamp, I would ask for this thing. Start with that, and then think of ways to engineer that into reality. Then give it your heart and soul to make it possible. And this is a real world example. This picture was shared by Tony Fadell, who was one of the product architects for the iPod project. Now we'll talk about the double diamond of design thinking. Very, very important and cliche design rule. Everyone talks of it. Half of the people don't understand it. The rest half forget it. But it's just a way of thinking. The double diamond, it just says you diverge, converge, diverge, converge. In other words, discover. So at the very beginning, you're imaginative. You're thinking in all directions. You're being creative. Then you define. Okay, now we have a bunch of ideas. Let's narrow it down. Because this is a product that we have to deliver. It's not just we have to generate 100 concepts, right? We need to deliver something, and we cannot make everything. So let's narrow down. Okay, now we narrowed down to some ideas. We know what direction we are going. Let's think of all the crazy ways we can execute this. Let's think of all the ways this can be done. Okay, now we diverged again, and we have an understanding of like 15 ways to do the same two things. Let's select what are the one or two ways that we are going to do one or two of those things, right? So you diverge, converge, diverge, converge. It's a process of creative thinking, then being logical again. Creative, and by creative and logical are not exactly the right words, but it's like you're more imaginative, and then you're more realistic. Imaginative, realistic, and then if you go through phases of that, that's how you land up at a point where you've considered all the possibilities. But I mean, you've also landed up with one solution in time. So you cannot take infinite time and infinite resources for a project, and thus you need to be realistic about what you're going to deliver. Double diamond simply in real terms means, and this is somewhat what I touched on. So first, when you're being creative, you start with 10 concepts, 3 directions. This is when you're diverging. Then when you converge, you have 2 ideas and 1 direction. You've narrowed down, you've placed your filters, you've put your market research and like viability studies, all of that. Now you just have 2 ideas and 1 direction. Now the next diverge is 10 different details in those 2 ideas, 3 possible prototyping methods just for those 2 ideas. But you're diverging more now, but in detail, right? It's not high surface level anymore. And then the final converge is 1 concept, 1 prototyping method, 1 manufacturing plan. If you see the difference between the last and the first point, you started with 10 concepts in 3 directions. You don't know how you're going to prototype it. You don't know how you're going to model it. You don't know how you're going to manufacture it. But at the end, you just have 1 concept, 1 method, and you know how you're going to do it. But you considered many things in between. And that's the whole point of it, that you diverge, converge, diverge, converge. So that was just a little bit about design. And yeah, good design, bad design, some rules to think about. There's this documentary on Dieter Rams called Rams. It's generally free on his birthday to watch. And then there's this another documentary called Objectified. I think I can find a link for Objectified and send it to you guys. Both of these documentaries have really defined how I think about design, and I would recommend everyone to watch both Objectified and Rams. So now we'll move into the second part of the lecture, role of sketching in the product development process. The sole purpose of sketching is communication. It's nothing else. If you think you're going to make beautiful sketches, it's going to look pretty, no. All everyone wants is, the whole purpose of sketching is to say, oh, this is what's going in my mind. This is on paper so that this person can understand it. If you cannot explain it in words, and generally words can be interpreted in many ways, but if you draw a picture, then it narrows down how it can be interpreted. So the sole purpose of sketching is just communication.